Hey guys, today we're taking a look at my Arcana Force deck. Now, I've always been a big fan of Arcana Force. It's a very fun deck type, but it's definitely a fun deck as opposed to a competitive deck because all their effects rely on luck. Still really interesting how they work. So first off, we have the Empress, a very powerful effect that you can special summon Arcana Force monsters. Its negative effect is also really bad that you're going to start giving up your hand. The Moon, really good, allowing you to bring out tokens which are useful for how this deck works because you can bring out more tribute monsters and use Court of Justice, but its negative effect is very, very bad. Arcana Force, the Fool, this one's a stall card, and it can also do some really interesting things. It can't be destroyed by battle, and based on whether it's heads or tails, you can kind of annoy your opponent by keeping effects off it. So it can be really, really interesting, and there's some really annoying things you could do with it. And then we have Arcana Force Temperance. Temperance is really nice because 2400, 2400, really nice balanced stats for a single tribute. And you can also discard it to, have no battle damage. Its heads and tails effects are just based on battle damage, so obviously the good one will reduce your damage, and if its tails, it'll reduce the opponent's damage. Chariot, very, very powerful heads effect that you can take control of your opponent's monsters. So yeah, it can be extremely powerful if you set this up the right way. Its tails effect is obviously very bad that you give up control of Chariot, but the nice thing is that their Chariot won't have its good effect. The Emperor, kind of your beater in this deck because with tails it'll have with heads it'll have 1900 attack. Very good with the other Arcana Forces because it boosts them all. So with Chariot up, it'll have 2200 attack, allowing it to get over so many monsters and then summon them to your side of the field, which can be really, really good. And then we have Archlord Kristya. So just very nice because if you have 4 fairy types in your graveyard, you can special summon it. Obviously, you're going to get fairies to the graveyard a lot with this deck. And you don't do that much special summoning, so it doesn't lock you down very much. So that's really good. Definitely nice to be able to recycle some of your Arcana Force monsters also because you want to be able to reuse their effects, in case you get the wrong call. And then we have 2 Shining Angels, obviously to search out what you need. Honest in a light-based deck, and then Arcana Force the World. Very powerful effect, allowing you to skip your opponent's turn. But its tails effect is very, very annoying that your opponent will keep getting their stuff back from the graveyard. But you can get this guy out with a lot of the cards you have in this deck that are dedicated to it, so definitely very nice, especially with some of the swarming you could do. And then 1 Gellenduo, just helping us get out those double tribute monsters. You can definitely run more of Gellenduo. Very good card. And then we have 3 Light Barrier, the field card for the Arcana Force. Very, very powerful effect. Luckily, you can kind of get around the heads and tails of your Arcana Force monsters. Court of Justice, really good, nice for this deck because you can use the Fool, and you can use the Moon, the tokens, and you can keep special summoning more monsters, which is really, really nice. Letting you get those higher leveled Arcana Force monsters out. Second Coin Toss, it's kind of an attempt to make the deck a little more consistent, but obviously you can still get the wrong calls over and over again, so it can be very annoying. MST, Pot of Duality, special summoning is limited, definitely need some draw power in this deck. You can also use the Cards in the Sky, or whatever it's called, also is a good thing for this deck. Creature Swap has a lot of really good applications for this deck. One of them is that you can give Arcana Force the Fool to your opponent and keep it in face-up attack position, which will really, really mess with them. You can use it to kind of give up Arcana Force monsters when the bad effects go off, which is really, really good. Can let you do some really cool plays. I really like Creature Swap for this deck in general. It just adds to the consistency because you can put those effects on your opponent. Obviously doesn't work with Chariot, but very helpful for the other monsters. And then Dark Hole. For the traps, we're going to have 2 Tour of Doom. Just a really good heads and tails card that hopefully will be made more consistent by second Coin Toss. Reversal of Fate, very, very good for Arcana Forces. Obviously, if you get the wrong call, another way that you can make this deck a little more consistent, and some staple traps. You need a lot of spell support to make Arcana Force works, so we're definitely limited on the more generic spell and trap support, which is kind of a shame. So now for the extra deck, just mostly going to have 4-star XYZs. XYZs aren't the big part of this deck, but we're going to have a lot of them because we have a lot of 4 stars. 1 Slacker Magician just in case to stall. Gagaga Cowboy, Silent Honor 2 because I have so much room in this deck. Exciton Knight, Maestroke, Abyss. A lot of staple ones. Vylon in case you can get out more monsters because you do have some swarming. We also have Constellar Omega because we have light monsters, which we have can upgrade into Ptolemy. So we have Ptolemy, which can also upgrade into Gaia Dragon. So just, you know, some uses there. You can put in like Fairy Cheer Girl, some other ones, but this extra deck has a lot of room, so you can really put in whatever you want. So now for the side deck. Again, side decks in my videos are just kind of recommended cards that can also work with the main deck. It isn't a side deck for matches. These are cards you want to think about when you're building your own Arcana Force deck, you know, cards that can also be really useful. So the Magician has a really good effect. You have to be activating spells though for it to keep working, but it turns them into a 2200 beater. So if you have a lot of quick play spells, or you just activate a lot of spells in general, this could be really good. If you're not running quick plays, this can be really, really bad on your opponent's turn. You can run all the Heralds. If you run them, you'll have access to very powerful negating effects and also synchros, so that's definitely an alternative. Athena can also be a really good card for this deck, obviously, to bring back certain monsters we need and just do damage when we're summoning. Statue of the Heavens can also be interesting, allowing you to kind of lock down your opponent. Splendid Venus is another interesting card that can really annoy your opponent. And then we also have Tethys here. Tethys can be an interesting single tribute. When you're running a good monster count, this can be very useful. For the spells, Enemy Controller, really, really good for this deck. Okay, we can use it with Arcana Force, the Fool. We can use it with Chariot to destroy defense position monsters. We can use it with the Magician if you want to run that. Same thing with Shrink. Both of those cards kind of accomplish the same type of goals in this deck. Valhalla, very helpful to special summon fairies. Light Wave Tuning, a lot of level 4 light monsters in this deck, so this gives you access to synchros, like I said. Cup of Ace is actually an Arcana Force support card, but again, it's just a choice. Constellar Belt, another interesting one to just keep your effects from being negated. 1-for-1, really good for this deck to get Arcana Force, the Fool, from the deck. Arcana Call, another interesting one, obviously an Arcana Force support card. And Lucky Chance, just kind of going with the deck. If you know what's going to happen with your heads and tails calls, you'll be able to get a lot of hand advantage. So that's definitely an interesting choice. But that's my Arcana Force deck. Like I said, definitely a fun deck, not a competitive deck. It's really interesting. It's really crazy, and like the chances for you to win and lose are just kind of up in the air based on what happens. But again, I really love this deck. I really have a lot of fun with it. But if you guys have your own Arcana Force decks, post below, let me know in the comments, talk about what cards you use, make suggestions for me, I'll take a look at those, maybe think about adding some of those to my deck. But as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.